Okay, welcome to the first episode of the Mount Rushmore podcast. If you found us, you probably have no clue what we are thinking. I imagine there's probably going to be some history buffs, right, Miles? Thinking like, oh,
Yeah.
hey, I like history. I like Mount Rushmore. Let's learn more about it. Not what you think it's about. No, we have nothing to do. Well, we might do something historical about like your actual favorite presidents or favorite war or something. I don't.
Maybe. Yeah. We'll see.
No, the Mount Rushmore podcast is, everyone talks about who's on their Mount Rushmore of, you name it, basketball players, wrestling, movies, anything you can think of. It's like, who's on your Mount Rushmore? And this podcast is to answer that. My name's Andrew, and I'm with my good friend Myles.
What's up?
Hey, Myles. How you doing?
Doing pretty good. I'm excited about this.
Yeah.
Really excited.
I mean, this has been in the works for, so long, like 2 weeks.
Yeah, we've been
planning it for like 2 weeks. Oh man.
Yeah.
we were just chatting one day and it was like, oh my gosh, this idea is amazing. So we're gonna try it. And if you don't like it, well, fuck you. But for those of you that do like it, we hope you stick around. And now we're gonna have to put the explicit language tag on.
PG-13, baby.
Hey, so Myles, what are we? This very first episode, and if you hear like little clicks behind me, it's my dog because I don't trust her to be on her own. So she's sitting right next to me, and we have hardwood floors in my house. So if you hear little clicks or whines, it's her. But she's just going to be like the first guest on the podcast.
First guest.
Yeah. So Myles, what are we talking about today? What's first on our Mount Rushmore? What are we building Mount Rushmore for today?
All right, and so here we are starting off with the top Star Wars movies. We figured we'd keep with the trend as we just saw The Last Jedi came out. 13 days? Yeah, 13 days ago. So we wanted to go ahead and pick our top 4 favorite Star Wars movies, and we're going to go ahead and list them. Basically, just overall what we did. It's an opinion based, not necessarily based off of stars or rating. Or I know a lot of people are going to have hatred for the original trilogy. Well, not the original, but the prequels.
The prequel trilogy. Yeah, Myles, if any of the prequel movies are in your Mount Rushmore, I think I might need to get a new co-host.
Let me change one real fast. I may or may not have one in there. We'll get there when we get there. It's not the top one, though. I'll give you that much. So start us off with your number one.
My number one? So my number one, it's The New Hope. It's A New Hope, not The New Hope. A New Hope. Episode 4. It was the first Star Wars movie I ever saw. 20 years ago, they were being re-released in theaters. And Sophie, you're being so annoying. I'm trying to talk to fans right now. Sophie, what's your favorite Star Wars movie? I'm just gonna move the toy away from her. So at the time I was like 11 years old, and my parents like, oh, we're gonna go see Star Wars. I'm like, what the heck is Star Wars? My parents like, what do you mean, what is Star Wars? I'm like, I'm 11 years old, Mom and Dad. I don't know what Star Wars is.
Yeah.
But we went to that first one, and I was hooked. So for me, it's my number one, mainly because of the nostalgia factor, especially as I've gotten older. It's not like particularly good acting by the actors. It's not like they're like, sorry, it's my dog. She's like, hey, come play with me. I'm like, no, I don't. I'm just gonna put her outside for a little bit. It's like, it's clear that like the actors weren't like who we know them to be. I mean, particularly like Harrison Ford is arguably the biggest star in Star Wars. But it was just like, yeah, this is like so awesome. It's so unique, and now I look back on it like, yeah, that probably is it.
Gotcha. Gotcha. I understand that one. That's a good one, but I disagree with the first one. I think that the bad acting was a bad part of that one. And I just think that it was like I understand that it was like the one that projected that, and I thought it may or may not be in my top four. Hint, hint, foreshadowing. But I liked it a lot. But
Well, some of the dialogue is not great. I always just think of Luke. He starts the movie as a whiny little bitch. To be honest, like that's the only way that you can describe it. It's like I was going to go to Toshi Station for some power converters. It's like, oh my gosh, like some of it is like pretty hard, but you think about like the universe that it has launched. And here we are 40 years later, and we just got a new Star Wars movie that, for some whatever reason, I don't know why people don't like it.
yeah, and I think we can do a theories about that movie in the future because I do have a theory about that I want to get into, but I don't want to get too far into that movie yet. But I understand what you're saying there. But I guess I'll go ahead with my number one.
Yeah, what is it? Let's hear it.
I'm gonna go. Mine is Return of the Jedi. I just
Really?
love. Yeah, it really is. I really liked that one brought it all together because a lot of people. I'll explain this one. A lot of people liked. Okay, so Empire Strikes Back had the same feel as I think that The Last Jedi did. Everybody was like, "Oh, this movie doesn't make any sense. There's so many plot holes." It's like, calm down, people. There's another movie coming out. It's supposed to bring the puzzle pieces together. And that's just what I liked about that one is like the last of the trilogy movies. I feel like those are the ones that bring it all together. They make you understand everything.
Right.
I mean, this one has Ewoks, which is like arguably besides Porgs, that's one of the cutest creatures that's ever been. And then, I mean, the blow up the second Death Star. Luke fights his father, and then we get to see the good side of him, and then
whoa, Myles, spoilers, come on.
Oh, Luke feeds his father. Oh, okay, all right. If you've been under a rock for the past 30 years, Luke defeats his father, and then his father turns and kills the Emperor.
Mm-hmm.
But no, and then I just really like that. We got an 8.4 stars. It was a good movie for me. It's the one that like settled everything together, and then the passing of Yoda, and that's where we see the Force ghosts and everything like that, and that leads into the newest trilogy, But
yeah, well, see, I wrestled. Return of the Jedi is not on mine. It's probably number 5. I wrestled with putting it in number 4, but then I started thinking about it, and it's really good, and it does end out the story, and you're talking about that Empire Strikes Back. Like, I mean, in our chat, I put that link of what people said about The Empire Strikes Back when it was first released, and it's like the same exact things. It's like story, something or other, angry, upset.
Yeah,
it's like this kind of closes out the story. But what I really like this movie because if you watch the original trilogy, the final scene is the first time of a lightsaber battle that they included music.
Yeah.
Every other thing is all just quiet, and you have the nature around it, which it kind of made you feel like you were there. But on the final scene, it's just like the epic, like do like fighting. It's like, oh yeah, this makes it that much more epic. I don't think that it would have that same feeling if there wasn't that music there.
Yeah, I agree. And as much crap as Phantom Menace gets, Duel of the Fates is the greatest Star Wars song. Maybe that's a future podcast, but I love that song so much. I don't know why.
Yeah, what's our reverse Mount Rushmore for the 4 worst Star Wars movies? Episode 1, Episode 2, Episode 3, and I think that's it. We'll have an empty space.
Episode.
Oh, sorry. I may be pooping on one of your top 4.
We'll see there. We'll get there. But no. What's your number 2? Let's see what your number 2 is.
My number 2. So in sticking with a theme, my number 2 is actually The Empire Strikes Back. And this is actually one that people generally regard as the best Star Wars movie, and it's very good. But it is an incomplete story, and I think that's what kept me from putting it as my number one. But I'm not so much of a dork that I don't realize that it's the second movie in a trilogy. So it's kind of linking the first one and the second one. That it's leading into the epic final scene, the final act of the trilogy. As a kid, I was actually really drawn to it because I really loved the planet Hoth. That first fight scene where the Empire is slowly marching towards the no longer hidden base, and there's the giant walkers and the speeders, and they're taking them down. It's just so awesome. And then you have Darth Vader. He's walking through the tunnels, and it's such a contrast because it's like they're trying to like portray that this dude is bad and evil. Look at him. He's in all black, and everything else surrounding him white.
Yeah.
So it's for me. It's so like it's on a much grander scale than A New Hope was, but. By this time I was like 15 years old, and still, so I'd been like reading, I'd read the books, and I've, had the action figures and stuff. And so it just didn't have that same, doesn't have that same nostalgia for me because it wasn't brand new to me, like A New Hope was.
Yeah. I understand that. I get what you're saying there. That's the only movie that I have a T-shirt of. Is like an Empire Strikes.
It was around this time actually. So I mean, I was like a young, 14, 15 years old, and my mom knew that I was like really into it, and actually I just found them maybe like 6 months ago in my parents' basement. She bought me these hats. One for A New Hope, one for The Empire Strikes Back, and one for Return of the Jedi. And like, no human being should ever wear them because they're just like really like cringe. But I'm like, no, I want to keep these around. Like, you don't see like movie themed hats where it just like spells out the name. But The Empire Strikes Back one definitely was my favorite because as a 14-year-old, I totally wore them because hashtag blunder years. But this one also still had like really corny lines at time and like bad acting, particularly once again by Mark Hamill when spoiler alert, Darth Vader reveals himself as his father. It's just like, okay, like give us your most epic no, and it's like, no.
And that's like and it has one of the most misquoted lines ever. They're like, "Luke, I am your father," but he says, "No, I am your father," and like that's one of the most misquoted things of all time.
Oh yeah, yeah. Okay, people, if you're gonna say that line, make sure that you're saying it correctly.
Yeah, for sure. Because it's no, I am your father. It's not Luke, I am your father. Because it's like one of the, like I said, it's like everybody. It's one of those things. It's like the what's it called? The effect that people have that like they remember something differently.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. I don't know the name of it though, but I know what you're talking about. Mass hallucination, I think, is what you're talking about.
It's something like that, but it's something to effect. Yeah, but I understand what you're saying, but I didn't put The Empire Strikes Back for my second. Actually,
you did it wrong, man.
I put A New Hope. I put your number one.
Really?
Yeah, I did. I thought it was a good one, but like it was like what embarked Star Wars, and it had 8.7 stars on IMDb, which I'm not sticking to the stars, as you can clearly tell. That one's actually higher than my first one, but I just really liked that. This was what started it. This was what was like allowed Star Wars to be what it is today. If it wasn't for a good first movie, like one of the prequels was the first one, then that's it. No more Star Wars. But if it would have been, I think if Phantom Menace came out first, well, okay, if Phantom Menace would have been the first one, it wouldn't have happened. That's how I feel. But it was a great one. They had the big name Harrison Ford, of course, and Millennium Falcon and Chewie. That's just like where everything started. And then it, looking back, to me, it's kind of weird because I was born after these movies, and I got to see the prequels before. Like I knew Darth Vader was the father beforehand, and like the having that background knowledge gives a different meaning to this one.
Mm-hmm.
I understand the fact how important this one was for the future of Star Wars, so I had to put it in the top. I had to put it up there near the top.
I mean, that's really interesting. But what I was actually thinking about, you're talking about that background knowledge, and that reminded me of a one time I was watching this documentary. It was with George Lucas, and he was talking about like the concept of Star Wars and how if you watch A New Hope, there's never explaining how something is, like how it got to be that way, what it is. They just kind of talk about it, like this is what it is. This is the way it always is. This is general knowledge in this universe. There's no explaining like, oh, this is a lightsaber. It's powered by a kyber crystal. Kyber crystals can be in different colors. They're really yada 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 Jedi to this Jedi that. It's just this is a lightsaber. Oh, this is my father's. Oh, awesome.
It makes more sense with the prequels. It really does. It's like, oh, okay.
Yeah. It definitely puts a different perspective, and unfortunately, there's a generation of children growing up who started with the prequels, and so when it comes to The Empire Strikes Back or A New Hope, like there's no mystery behind who Darth Vader is. It's like, oh, that's Anakin Skywalker. He was a Jedi, and then he's a bad guy now, and oh yeah, he's this guy's father and her father.
Yeah.
Thankfully, my brother-in-law, his kids are starting to get to the age of watching movies, and Star Wars is definitely on the list, and they have seen all of the original trilogy. My brother-in-law and sister-in-law, more so my brother-in-law, made it a point that they would watch the original trilogy first, so they could have that, like, oh, it's a Star Wars moment. So
yeah, that makes sense. And those are just originals, though. They're. It's hard to explain, but there's different ways you can watch it for different effects. I know there's
right.
one. There's one that people watch it a certain way, but like the way that they watch it, they get the least amount of Jar Jar possible, just enough to where that they know who he is. Which is like, I know a lot of people hate on Jar Jar and stuff, but of course that's what everybody goes to. But moving on down the line, what you got number three?
Number three. I hope this surprises you.
Okay.
But it wouldn't surprise me if it didn't. I have Rogue One as my number 3 Star Wars movie.
Fair enough. I didn't expect that one in the top. Honestly, it did. It surprised me. I didn't see that one in the top 4.
I like to throw people a swerve every once in a while, but here's why I like it. It's a very good story, and it kind of fills in the backdrop between the end of Episode 3 and the beginning of Episode 4. I mean, and for a multitude of reasons. One, it's a great story. 2, it's a war movie. People were upset because it didn't have enough of the quote-unquote Star Wars in it, but it's not a Star Wars movie. It's a war movie where they are fighting the Empire, and they are, igniting the rebellion from its earliest roots. And so they're fighting. They're fighting for their life. They aren't like going after a lightsaber or trying to find a missing person. They're going to go and they're going to find out what the Empire has up their sleeve and why they're so secretive, and then boom, we're going to see planets get destroyed. So, but then great story leading to the ending that they added, where Darth Vader going through the ship and just like showing like force powers and lightsaber action. I mean, probably the most epic ending to a movie, this decade at least. It's just like boom.
The CGI for Leia there, that was, to me, that was like, and I can't remember his name. I'm going blank, but the general
Tarkin.
Yeah, he was CGI. That was not him. He was dead. I didn't know he was dead when the movie was filmed.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he was like already like 85 when A New Hope was being filmed, and that was 40 years ago. I mean, we can do some eugenics and wait, is it eugenics? Let me make sure I'm saying the right thing there.
I just didn't think about it at the.
No, it is not eugenics, guys. It's not eugenics. I repeat, not eugenics. Eugenics is bad.
Yeah.
Whatever it's called when we raise people from the dead.
Zombies.
Zombies. Yeah, we're gonna need to zombify whoever. What's his name? Yeah, but and Tarkin, I think, is definitely one of the most badass characters in Star Wars. If you've like read any of the novels, like just like a really like intense upbringing, and then like in the Clone Wars TV show, like just like a brilliant tactician. So I'm glad that he kind of got a little prominent role within the movie, and showing like, no, this is what we're gonna do, and if you don't like it, you can back out of my way because we're rolling forward, and I don't really care about you. I care about the Empire and seeing them. It's just like ruthless.
Yeah. At one point, to add to that part where you talk about people didn't like the Rogue One stuff, I'll just tell you this: Star Wars fans are the worst fan base ever because no matter what the movie is like, they hate it. This one doesn't have enough Star Wars original stuff, and then it's like this one doesn't connect to the old ones. Or then they make one that's completely connecting to the old ones. Oh, this one's not original. And it's like, oh, this one's too original. And it's like, which do you want? I hate you all.
I know. Yeah, that's right. You all suck, but please don't stop listening to the podcast.
Yeah. So my number 3, I don't know if this will surprise you. It may or may not, but I'll put The Last Jedi there. I really enjoyed that movie. Yeah, and just, all right, so if you're at this point, you haven't seen the movie yet, watch out for spoilers. Yeah. Even though there may have been spoilers.
Yeah, spoilers. Well, I mean, this is good because we can kind of talk about it because I put The Last Jedi as my number 4. So
okay.
So let's hear why for you it's number 3.
All right. So the reason for me, first off, I think it's going to get better with age. Like it's only got a 7.6 stars right now on IMDb, but I think it'll get better because all the puzzle pieces are connected. Mm-hmm. And I have a theory that Snoke is not dead. You heard it here first. Snoke is not dead. I have a theory about that. But also,
that's another podcast.
Yeah, that's another podcast. There's too much into that one, but there's a little sneak peek. But no, it was just, to me, it had that perfect originality that they needed. While it also had a hint of the old past, like Yoda returning, that made me happy. The most disgusting part was when he milked whatever the fuck that dinosaur was. I hated that part. I was like, God, what's that green milk? Like, spit it out. But like it was just, but it was so good to me, and just to see Kylo turn back, like, and then just we learned a lot there, and like that opened up the possibility, like, was Obi-Wan really on the Death Star when it opened up a lot there, and it's just I can't wait to see the next one, and I don't know. And then like the possibility of is the new trilogy going to be focused on the force sensitive child at the end of The Last Jedi? Like, is that like that part? And then just now the love romance between Finn and Rose, and is Rey going to be single forever and keep the Jedi or return the Jedis? It's like, is that going to happen? And then,
well,
that Force ghosts are stronger than Jedi, really. I mean, Yoda shooting that lightning down, I was like, damn.
Yeah, I really liked the movie because one of the things is Yoda. And you can tell that, it's a little CGI, but I think that it may have been heavily inspired by the way that Yoda looked in Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. Like, I'm fairly certain they found that puppet and kind of like spruced it up with technology, because he did not look anything like he did in the prequel trilogy. But I also liked, though, that they showed the power of the Force. It showed that you can connect people and have them talk to each other, and that they can be a hologram, and that you can call lightning down from the sky on the light side. And like all these powers, and I mean, a lot of people had problems with that. They're like, well, they never showed that before. It's like, there's only so many movies and books. It's possible that you haven't read everything that the Force can do. So, I say, go shut up and go get a life and just enjoy a movie for what it is if you don't like it.
Yeah, because there's me, and a lot of people were like, "Oh, Leia using the Force," which I understand. She like flew out of there. I was like, "Do you know who her father is?" I mean, it's not like he was just like I don't know the greatest, like strongest, had the most, ranked the highest on the scale of the Jedi of like Force sensitivity and anything like that. That's not who her father was. Darth Vader, Anakin Skywalker. Hello, but I was just
Well, I think that this movie showed that you don't have to be a Skywalker to be a great Jedi and be a powerful Jedi or Sith. They like really tried to emphasize like that Snoke was happy with Ben because he's from the Skywalker lineage, and you have little Rey who was abandoned on a planet by people who may or may not be important. And here she is, and she's lifting rocks. Not just one rock, like 50 big boulders out of the way, so the fledgling rebellion can survive. And it's very interesting, especially with I liked it because if you've read some of the other novels, one of them is about Ahsoka Tano, who might be my favorite character in the Star Wars universe. Along with not equal to Tarkin, because she's a Jedi, and Tarkin's not, for very different reasons. But Ahsoka considers herself a gray Jedi, that she does what's best for the people who she's helping, whether it's good on the light side of things or on the dark side of things. And that's kind of what we're seeing with Kylo Ren, and AKA Ben Solo, that he's conflicted as to how he wants to act. And I think that in the last movie, this is my quick 3-second theory, that he actually does, that he becomes more of a gray Jedi, and just kind of does what's best, still trying to take over the universe, but not necessarily evil.
So you think he might bring back the white lightsaber?
Very possible. Very possible. I think that'd be really badass if we saw him with a white sword lightsaber.
Yeah, and I know she is that's a big thing I've been looking into. I need to look more into the Rebels and stuff. It's been a while since I saw that, but the Gray Code, that's the strongest of the it's a gray Jedi. People mistake it's a gray Jedi. It's like an anti-hero, kind of like Deadpool in terms.
Yeah,
it's very, they're good but not necessarily all good.
Right.
They kill badder guys. They're not the best of guys, but they kill worse.
They kill worse people, and they kill some good people as well, but mostly bad people.
I have a theory about the next movie, but of course that's a whole nother podcast. But I completely understand he could be a gray Jedi.
Yeah.
Really, he don't have that. I don't think he's too strong either way. I think he's more balanced. Maybe. Or maybe he gets purple. Maybe he gets a purple lightsaber.
Mace, the most powerful Jedi of all, Mace Windu, digging him up from the grave, or from the bottom of Coruscant. I also really liked this movie. It's just a great story. Not that it's a complete story, because there's definitely big plot holes, but it's a great connecting story of The Last Jedi, or sorry, The Force Awakens, and whatever the third one in the trilogy would be called, which a lot of people are upset because it didn't seem like a complete story, and that's because they're not telling one story. They're telling a story over 3 movies.
Exactly. Yeah, it's part 1, part 2, part 3. Mm-hmm. It's 6-7 hour long movie, but you got to watch it in parts. It's not like they can. I mean, if they want to, by all means, come out with a movie every 2 years that's 7 hours long, I'm down. Yeah. But they're not. Disney's got to make that money. I mean, solo movie. But they have to spread it out like that, and it's just it's part 2 of 3. And I'm sure you can watch about most movies, go about 2/3 in. If it's an hour and a half movie, go an hour in, and then you're still confused. How's it going to end?
Right.
I mean, that's a common thing with movies. That's why people fail to realize this is just a dragged out long movie.
Yeah, this is just being set up the same way they did in Empire Strikes Back. They're setting it up for the third movie. The end of Empire Strikes Back, Han Solo was encased in carbonite, and people are like, "Well, I guess that's the end of him." Okay. Same thing with this one. It's the full rebellion right now can fit on the Millennium Falcon. Think about that. That's all there is. So
It's true. I mean, there's only one true thing about Star Wars that we've learned is like if you were born into and sold as a slave, or if your parents sold you for like drink money and you're like an orphan, you will be strong with the Force. When Anakin Skywalker, Rey, that new Force sensitive kid that did the boom. So if that's you and you're listening to this podcast, you have hope. You will be a Force user, and you're gonna go. No, that was just like something I don't know if that has any. I don't know. It's like it makes you feel good. It's like the person that has the least turns out to be one of the best and stuff. But I really like that.
Yeah, exactly. So you're number 3, my number 4. We had a good discussion on that. Miles, what is your number 4 that we can argue about? Because it's going to be wrong.
Ladies and gentlemen, here comes the hate. My number 4, and it's Revenge of the Sith. I love this movie. I don't care what they say. This one has the lightsaber battles. This is the one that like we see Anakin become Darth. This is, you're my brother, Anakin. This is like I absolutely love Obi-Wan Kenobi. He's my favorite Jedi of all time, and just excited to see him. And I think first off, no homo. He is the best looking guy on. But like it's just such a great movie to me. This is where we see the turn of Chancellor Palpatine, and he takes control of the Senate, and then it starts into the Empire, and he becomes Emperor, and then Darth Vader turns. It's just, I know you have a lot of hate for this one. I know you.
It's such bad dialogue. At the very end, they're fighting, and he's like, "You were the chosen one, Anakin." And he's climbing up. He's like, "I hate you." It's like, "I have the high ground." It's like, wait, what? Like, if you haven't seen this movie in a while, go watch it, and you'll see that Miles is completely wrong about how good this movie is. Yes, we see the change of Anakin, and he gets the red eyes, and he gets burned up. But if after watching that, go take a moment and watch 2 things for me, okay? There's an episode of Gilmore Girls where one of the characters talks about how bad this movie is. And then Google search Patton Oswalt's rant about Star Wars and how bad this is as well. And at least you'll have some redemption of being able to laugh. And don't worry, listening audience, I told Miles that I would shit on his picks if they were bad. So
what's happening.
So
prequel believers in there. I know they're listening.
And I don't think that Miles has seen those 2 things. So after we're done, I'm going to look it up and send it to him just so he can educate himself.
I hate the prequels as much as the next guy. I thought they were necessary. I like them. I know that there's some bad acting and stuff like that, but it's the Star Wars story. I don't care. We get this story is the main thing. And people hate Jar Jar. I kind of like Jar Jar. He's not the worst. But like, I'm feel like I'm digging myself in a hole. But yeah,
a deep hole.
Yeah, so I like the end of the movie the best, if that makes you feel better. Towards the end, that's where we see everybody change, and then the birth of Leia and Leia.
No.
Yeah, every teenager who was a teenager in the early 2000s, early 90s, or I'm sorry, late 90s, Padme, I'm sure that they had a picture of her laying around. But, of course, that was just, I don't know, she was very attractive. But, yeah, of course, it was such, I just liked it. And then Darth plays the wise, then we see him kill Count Dooku. It was this turning point, and then,
I'm not saying that everything in the prequel trilogy is bad, because I definitely do enjoy some of the characters. I would love to like get a Count Dooku, maybe like a novel or something, because I enjoy reading Star Wars. And General Grievous. I think that those 2 characters are very, if explained properly, they're very dynamic.
Yeah. I think that'll happen. I've heard a rumor of the General Grievous thing and the Count Dooku thing as well, because he was training the Jedi, and then he turned. That's the case with a lot of the older Jedi. A lot of people fail to realize, or during the Clone Wars, that there's a lot of Jedi that turned bad into the Sith and stuff like that. But yeah, I want to see. I'd like to see more into that. And you've got to give me this. That's the best one of the trilogy, okay?
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure.
Yeah, it's like I understand that, like, of the trilogy, people are like, oh, this one sucks. Even IMDb agreed with me. This one actually has the same rating as The Last Jedi, 7.6 stars. Of course, I do expect The Last Jedi to rise over time, and it has a little less votes cast for it. But yeah, it's people hate them. They were necessary. I know that they have a lot of bad parts, but I don't know. I liked it. And Yoda was in there, and it's just where he leaves. And
Well, I mean, well, definitely like in the Clone Wars, the fight scene between Yoda and Dooku, still terrible dialogue leading up to it. He's like, well, I guess that our knowledge of the Force won't be able to beat each other, so now we will battle with a lightsaber. It's like, oh my gosh, just fight already. Like, just get it over with. We know it's coming. You don't need a terrible dialogue.
Yeah, but yeah, I've got my top four there. Didn't want to. I'm glad I didn't put the Revenge of the Sith higher.
There'd be no forgiveness for that.
Yeah, no, I have a trend of liking the later of the movies, and people crap on me for that, and it's just because that's usually the best one. It's just like it's the one that like wraps everything up, and I thought that one wrapped everything up in the trilogy in the first one, but
it did. There's no doubt about that. It wrapped it up, but at times I feel that it wrapped it up too quickly. But it's like, oh, we've already had an hour and a half long movie. I guess we have to finish everything up in the next half hour. It's like, well, you just had an hour and a half, and yeah, you had to build towards stuff, but you shut some stuff down already and gave them more time to more important things.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they're all good movies. I could go and I don't necessarily need to watch the prequel trilogy, but if I'm going to do like a marathon, they're definitely going to be included in what I watch.
Yeah. Yeah, every time I try to, like every summer or something like that, I try to at least watch them all. Just kind of like refresh, and I just like to watch them. I think they're good movies. My children will see every movie of them. Like that's inevitable. All the movies will be watched. I'm not going to tell them about the cramping on that they get, but I think people like it more if they're not told how bad it is. I think that's a trend.
I mean, if they're not told.
Just like don't give them any form of internet capabilities or anything like that. And they'll be fine. They'll like it, you know. So the shit posting that goes on for these movies, especially the trilogy. Oh God, I hate people sometimes. Like some of them, I know they're bad, but they're not as bad as people make them.
Well, I mean, that's the thing is that's the thing about this podcast, that no matter what you like, it's what you like, and that's on your Mount Rushmore. This is just the place where we'll debate it and tell each other that we're wrong about it. And yet we'll continue in 6 months. We'll have this conversation again, and we'll all be like, no, I'm right. And then it's like, no. So
I probably ask me this next week, like which one's my favorite, and it would probably change up somehow. Because like sometimes I think, it's like, well, this happened in that movie, and I kind of like that, But like this could change for me day to day, honestly.
Right.
But as of December 28th, 2017, at 7:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, this is what I believe. But yeah, it can change. But yeah, I think that it'll also change when the 9th movie comes out, because me and the trend of liking the old movies, it may be top 3, who knows? But
yeah.
See, I didn't expect the Rogue One though for you in the top 4, but I like that one a lot.
Woo. Okay, so I mean that's our Mount Rushmore Star Wars movies. Oh,
all right.
So yeah, so that's it. Myles, do you have any closing thoughts on Star Wars and how good it is or how bad it is?
It's all good. People shit on it, but it's all good. We'll have more Star Wars movies to come out, I'm sure. Movies. Yeah, well, yeah, there is movies. May 23rd, Solo movies coming out, which I don't really particularly care for. We'll talk about those. I think that would be a good topic is future Star Wars story movies opposed to like a trilogy. But like, I hate the idea of a solo movie. I'll have to talk about that later. But the I think that's a good one. I'm sure you were probably going to talk about this, but of course, here we are. We're on Anchor, and we're also on YouTube. This will be going up there. We're gonna be working on trying to get podcasts elsewhere. Of course.
Yeah, we're hoping to get it onto iTunes. So I'll be working on that. But until then, uh, just keep on looking for us. This is the Mount Rushmore podcast. Myles, what's the name of the YouTube channel? How can they get us on YouTube?
It's Mount Rushmore podcasts. You just go on YouTube.com, look in your search bar, Mount Rushmore podcast. That's all it is. It's the same as it's the same as here on Anchor, except it has podcasts at the end. So as long as you spell it the same, it's spelled correctly. It's how it's actually Mount Rushmore spelled. There's no videos on there as of this second, but this video will be up there.
There will be soon, huh?
Yeah, it'll be up there. So, yeah.
Nice. So yeah, you'll be able to listen to us there. You'll be getting us on your iTunes, and if you like it, we're also. Oh, I forgot. We're gonna be setting up a Twitter channel. We're working on it. This all came like we said it came together like 2 weeks ago, but it like really came together really quickly just because it's like the holidays right now. We're recording this a couple days after Christmas. So it's like, we should probably do that. So there's just like a whole like stuff that we need to do to connect with you guys. So, but if you like it, like us on Anchor, and that's how you'll be able to get it for the next couple days. But then we will get it into more places, and of course, we'll keep you updated on that. We're hoping to do this weekly, at least. We Myles and I are working on more topics to talk about because there is so much debate going on everywhere. Like our next podcast is going to be the top President Trump moments of 2017. So, just kidding. Just kidding. We probably aren't going to do anything with him because there's too many options and we just couldn't narrow it down.
I don't know how political I want to go. We'll see about that.
So we just hope to have a good time with it. We'll have more Mount Rushmore debates. And until then, just think about who's on your Mount Rushmore, and we'll be back later. So, guys, thanks, and gals, thanks for listening. We appreciate it. Please subscribe. Please leave a comment where you can. And we'll be back next week with another Mount Rushmore podcast.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye. # poop the dog.